This is the Bush Whisperer from Cape Agulhas. I thought I'd share a few more words with you. We're going to talk about transcendence and what transcendence means. Transcendence is when we are able to move beyond the limitations of ourself. We consider ourselves to be a fixed facet, a unit, a structure, when in truth the self is a pattern. And this pattern is really essentially cognizant flows of energy that move in habitual form. And these habitual forms are like patterns on the water that are changing, and there's a constant state of flux within the nature of self. And transcendence is a natural, normal, and habitual process that happens whether we're aware of it or not. To consider transcendence is to consider the way a snake molts, the way it sheds its skin. When it grows, it's too big for its skin, it transcends its own skin and it has to leave its skin behind. And this is the perfect metaphor for transcendence. The snake also happens to be a symbol of energy and how consciousness becomes energy. And this is why the letter S is so fundamentally important when considering energy. That's why the word sex is written with an X, because sex is how consciousness manifests energy to become physical form. So there's something powerful understood in the nature of the symbol of the serpent, a very, very intense shamanic symbol. Many shaman have very close experiences with serpents. I personally had one with a large snake, like 15 feet, an anaconda you could say, in the jungles where I bonded with such a big being. We kissed each other on the lips, obviously a wild one. And obviously as a shaman you have to connect with animals in the wild as part of your initiation. In order to call yourself a shaman, you have power animals that you connect with. So the serpent is this incredible symbol of transformation, and also the serpent is also a symbol of knowledge in a sense, because this ability to transform is also the essence of knowledge, because knowledge transforms things. When we have knowledge of how things work, we can manipulate them. Knowledge is power, they say. The reason why knowledge is considered to be power is because of the serpentine element contained within the essence of knowledge. Which is why when we look at the biblical story, we see once again, when it comes to knowledge, there's the serpent. The symbol's always there. It's somehow fundamental to the nature of transcendence. And transcendence is very powerfully related to knowledge. And knowledge is, you could consider to be a child of wisdom and understanding. For it is when wisdom enters into understanding that knowledge is born, as a union between the two. This is one of the great Kabbalistic maxims that holds fundamentally true and is profound to meditate on and contemplate as a word power symbol. Also, transcendence should also be considered to be the essence of healing, because when we have a pattern that is unhealthy, that needs to be left behind, transcendence is how this is done. We transcend our negative habits and our negative patterns in order to take the form of more positive, healthier habits and patterns. For life is a series of habits and patterns that we get locked into because the rhythm of life carries us in the way the rhythm of the wind and the ocean and the turning of this ball that we find ourselves upon tends to be a consistency. And rhythm is also one of the fundamental principles that the shaman bases his practice and his knowledge tree upon. There are different knowledge trees. Essentially there are 7 knowledge trees, rhythm being one of the 7 principles. To understand these, I would suggest go and take a look at Hermetics. It's out there. I will do a talk on the Hermetic principles. Though for now, I thought I'd leave you with a little bit of a concept relating to how rhythm and knowledge are born, and how the essence of transcendence is the way in which knowledge expresses itself. So when considering transcendence, it's important to notice that the first part of the word is trance. Now we're back to the domain of the shaman. Trance is related to rhythm, because rhythm puts us in a trance. In fact, you could say that rhythm is a trance. You could say that the trance of consciousness produces rhythm, and this rhythm is what powers the nature of this reality, why everything moves in rhythmic succession. Without rhythm, there could be no expression of polarity. And without the expression of polarity in terms of rhythm, there could be no causality. For causality is rhythm's effect of polarized elements of energy movement. So, and obviously this causality is what produces the fundamental balance, the fundamental masculine and feminine aspects of all things. Expression, impression, the way impression is expressed. Expression becomes an impression that we experience. And this rhythm is the key to understanding the patterns of consciousness. For it does relate to the Lord of Time, Saturn, which is the essential ruler of the solar power, the solar plexus. For the solar plexus is what generates the form that creates this universe. You could think of it in terms of archetypal fatherhood, in a sense. So rhythm is very powerful, very important in maintaining harmony. For it is harmony that manages rhythm. And this is essentially the domain of what generates knowledge. For it is the rhythm of thinking, the rhythm of the heartbeat, the rhythm of the thought patterns that are able to reveal the inner and the patterns of being that are so fundamental to the nature of consciousness. And it is so that rhythm is the key to music, fundamentally. In fact, music, the harmony of tone, is based upon the feature of rhythm. For without the rhythm, there would be no pattern. And knowledge is about discovering patterns. And rhythms operate through patterns. So to understand what is the key to rhythm is to understand the key to patterns, is to understand what is harmony and how polarization, as above, so below, manifests through the rhythmic patterns of being, through the rhythmic patterns of consciousness that produce thoughts, and the polarizing effect of thoughts and feelings, and how the thoughts and feelings drive each other in this harmony of rhythm. And that is essentially the basis of knowledge. And transcendence is grasping these principles, grasping them, and being able to reanimate a new aspect of the dynamo of being, creating new dynamics, new shifts of consciousness, possibilities of thought, new feelings, or even old thoughts or feelings that have been left behind, but a new octave thereof. So I thought I'd share that with you, a little bit of an abstract concept relating to the powers of harmony as it's expressed through rhythm, which becomes the element of transcendence. Transcendence being the way in which we are able to actualize the true superego, the ego, as I like to call it, from its ancient name in ancient Greece. Not that word that people sling around haphazardly, which is actually denoting the personas, which are fragments of the ego, because of the polarizing effects of the shadow being torn from it. And the shadow just meaning that which is repressed by consciousness. And so when we allow our repressions to emerge, this is when we grow. And when we face our shadow and it becomes integrated, is when we transcend. And this is when we reach into a new rhythm of being to produce the higher harmonies of consciousness that are the essence of the self. This is the Bush Whisperer, sharing a few considerations about the nature of rhythm and how knowledge is the essence of transcendence. So much love. Keep it real, keep it true. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.